All right, we're right up at the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for today's Tridium Talk. Today, we've got some special guests with us from View and Veea, who are going to be highlighting the solutions that they're bringing to market utilizing Containerized Niagara. I'm Mike Smith, product manager here at Tridium, and glad to have you all with us today. All right. On today's agenda, we'll start off as usual with what's new with Niagara. I'll give a brief overview of what Containerized Niagara is, and then we'll turn it over to View and Veea for some highlights on their Containerized Niagara offerings. And we will have some Q&A time here at the end of the session. So any questions you have for myself or View or Veea, feel free to go ahead and drop those in the chat. So the chat window or the Q&A window is open. We will answer some questions as we go along and then reserve some questions for live Q&A at the end of today's session. All right, what's new with Niagara? As always, starting out, 4.10 is our existing long-term supported release. 4.10U7 is now available. 4.10U8 is just around the corner, so make sure you keep your eyes out for the announcements on that. Our standard support release, 4.13, 4.13U2 is now available, so make sure you're staying up to date on all of your latest software. And 4.14 beta testing is now available. If you're interested in either testing on a bench or in a live site, please reach out to Tridium beta test at tridium.com, and we'll get you set up and get you testing. Here's just kind of an overview of some of the great features you'll see in the 4.14 offering. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see some of the great stuff that is coming with our next release. And if you would like to learn more about 4.14 and some of the features, we've got a Tridium Talk scheduled for next week, March 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where we'll be overviewing some of the features coming with 4.14. And we will also be doing a preview for the Niagara Summit. If you're not aware, the Niagara Summit is coming up very soon, April 15th through 17th in Anaheim, California. And if you are interested in learning more about the summit or getting registered, you can visit the Niagara Summit website and find out more information. All right, on to today's topic. So Containerized Niagara product overview. I'm just going to give a quick highlight of what the technology is, when it came out, and then I will turn it over to our special guests. So with Niagara 4.13, we offered Niagara in a Docker container. So basically what that does is that takes the full Niagara framework and its dependencies and packages it up into a Docker container. And we currently support two different architectures, both ARM64 and AMD x86. And we support two different authorization models, file domain and native domain. So that is how you interact and inject credentials into the container. So file domain is more like your standard login and credentials, and native domain enables the use of Kubernetes secrets for credential management. So why use containers? This technology has been around for a while, and it's much lighter weight than running an application in a virtual machine. It's less resource intensive, and a lot of IT departments prefer to manage applications in this environment as opposed to virtual machines. We see a couple primary use cases for the Niagara being offered in a container. That's as a cloud supervisor, on-prem supervisor, or hardware embedded, which allows the Niagara framework to run alongside other applications in third-party hubs or on devices where Niagara was typically not deployed before. So just a quick overview of what it is. There was a more in-depth dive into the technology and how all of this works. We did a Tridium Talk in June of last year. So if you'd like to learn more about the technology and how it all works, I encourage you all to check out the Tridium Talk. That can be found on our events page at tridium.com, where we dive deeper into that and have some good demos and some live demos and displays of the technology. So moving on, got special guests today, as I mentioned. We've got Aaron Brondum, the Senior Director of Business Development with View. He will be highlighting the View Secure Edge. And we've got Joseph Warner, the Director of Customer Programs from Veea, who will be highlighting the Veea Edge platform. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron. And Aaron, if you want to go through the View offering and share your screen.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the introduction. Appreciate the opportunity here to share with the group here View Secure Edge from our Smart Building Cloud team. And we're going to highlight Niagara 4 and containers and how they're part of this solution. So to get started, View Secure Edge is an all-in-one secure digital connectivity infrastructure for building operations technology. We're deployed for thousands of devices in over 600 buildings worldwide. These are some of our customers that are standardized on our product. You know, Secure Edge customers see immediate results. Con Nguyen from Kilroy said the following: we have deployed Secure Edge in over 100 buildings being served by hundreds of vendors and have been thrilled with the outcome. Our buildings are not only more secure and more unified than ever, but also far more cost effective to manage. View operates at the speed of innovation, future-proofing our investments. Secure Edge is a zero trust operational technology mode. We employ best security practices. We use zero trust architecture. We encrypt all traffic. We isolate data in the building and to the cloud. We use bookended architecture with certificates. We eliminate VPNs and vulnerable screen sharing applications. We employ continuous threat intelligence. And more importantly, what we're discussing today, we use containerization to secure and manage edge compute. On the right of the screen here, you can see the third-party groups that have certified and verified our application. So Secure Edge is a plug-and-play environment for operational technology apps. We're providing a unified solution to secure your building networks and devices, also connecting the buildings to the cloud and deploying edge applications for real-time processing, insights, and optimizations. On the bottom left, you'll see the term inode. I'm going to talk about inode quite a bit. Inode is our device, our appliance that's installed in the buildings. But always to start with at the foundation, cybersecurity is what we're focused on and what we start with. So we're securing your operational technology and devices, and we're reducing your cyber risk. We're also providing cloud connectivity. So cloud connectivity to the building systems, to the cloud securely, end-to-end encryption, along with providing remote access for users that's very unique and easily managed. And then the third layer is intelligence at the edge. We're running the leading smart building applications on a resilient, low latency, cloud managed environment, on-prem or in the cloud. And Niagara is one of those applications. So to get started, on the bottom left, you'll see this diagram. This is the inode inside the box. That's what the appliance looks like. I've got a little icon there showing how we're trying to eliminate PCs. We're connecting to that all the OT networks that you potentially have in your building. Could be the BMS, access control, video surveillance, elevators. We're securing that. We're managing it through the Secure Edge portal. So if you can imagine, if you have 100 buildings, you go to a single portal that you're managing all of these inode devices, and you're monitoring all the operational technology that's in it. And that's what we get started with. Then we layer on other applications or features on top of it. The next part that we would layer on is remote access and secure connectivity. So on the remote access side, there's another portal that your OT vendors or your employees potentially log into that provides them access through secure tunnels, through the inode device, down to the operational technology. Now, this remote access can be configured and set up. For example, let's say we've got a chiller manufacturer that wants to just get data or connect to their chiller. We could employ rules within the remote access that allows them to access the one IP address that's on the BMS network down to not just the IP address, but the port, along with constraining that to a certain time of the day. Let's say we don't want them in during the day, during normal building hours, only during after hours times, we can say, hey, let this vendor in, let them have access to this one piece of equipment that's on the network from say 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. We're also, with those same secure tunnels, we're providing connection to customer clouds, so other applications. So as Mike showed on the slide, the Niagara containers can run locally on-prem on a device, what you'll see on the inode, or can run in the cloud as well, along with other applications. Could be your customer's secure data lake. We're providing connectivity to all that and securing all of those connections with this offering. So on the inode as well, we have that Docker engine. We're supporting those OT applications like Niagara. So here's an example of, you'd go to our marketplace, you'd pull down Niagara, you can run it on the inode, or we can also support Niagara running in the cloud environment for you as well. And it's not just limited to Niagara. There's multiple other OT applications that are available in the marketplace for you to test and try. And what we're doing here at View is we're making this easy. I'll show you here in a second that it doesn't require new training, anything advanced. We've taken all of the Docker engine orchestration, all of the applications that you could potentially containerize, created a marketplace to make it point and click and easy deploy and onboard new applications. So, like I said, it's super easy. Any controls technician, controls engineer, piece of cake. You don't need to learn something new. I personally think it's easier than loading a supervisor on a Windows machine, and I'll show you how it's done. So you go to our marketplace, you log in, you pick Niagara, you select an inode, you select what building it's going to be installed on, you click submit, you name the service, you select what version of Niagara, you decide what OT network it's going to have availability to talk to, you click submit, and your application's deployed. As you can see there, Niagara containers up and running in an inode, point and click, super easy to deploy. Nobody has to learn Dockers or containers to be able to leverage this technology. But there's a couple more steps you need to do with everybody that works with Niagara. We now have to license it, so we need to connect Workbench. We go through the licensing process. Once that's done and we're licensed, nothing's different. Nothing changes from what you're used to using. It's just like a Jace or a supervisor. You get your station loaded, you're off working, and there's nothing different than what you're currently doing today working with Niagara. As more Workbench features are added to the web interface of Niagara, just want to show you an example. There are quite a bit that are there. There's still a little bit more to come, and I know Tridium's slowly chipping away at this, getting away from potentially the thick client side of the Workbench. But give you an idea, we could utilize our remote access tool. We're logging in through the remote portal. We click on the Niagara side, we go to that web station, we authenticate, we enter in our Niagara username and password. And there you have it. The web version of Niagara is up and running. And this could be made available to anyone that has remote access, doesn't require Workbench running locally on a machine, to the features that are supported there. So the next part, and why containers are important, why Docker is important, why cybersecurity is important, is you're only as secure as your latest patch, your latest version. We constantly have to be updated. We constantly have to be monitoring and managing our devices, not just operating systems that they're running on, but the different versions. We make it super easy. We're doing the OS side on the inode, and we make it very easy for you to go back to the marketplace, select a new version of that existing service, you click submit. Once that's done, the container is updated with the latest version of Niagara, and you're off and running and have deployed your updates in a couple clicks. So using Containerized Niagara on View Secure Edge, we think there's a couple use cases, and my kid on this early is, let's get away from the desktops, let's get away from the machines, plug and play. You're using something, our inode, you're able to run a Niagara supervisor on it. Our use case, you don't need to learn containers. It's resilient. Your cybersecurity is only as secure as your latest update. We support failover, and you can share all this data with these cloud connections across multiple sites. We see a big need for this on the construction side. As a system integrator, you're potentially at risk as you're providing remote access. How do you make sure that it's secure? How do you make sure that it's consistent for all of your technicians that are out using it? We feel that the inode is a great solution for this. It provides standardization for your construction side of your business. It allows you to track all of the users that are potentially, maybe someone's doing the graphic side. Let's say the commissioning agent needs to get in. Let's say the balancer needs to get in. You have a remote, secure way to allow all that to happen. And then what you're able to do at the end of all construction projects, you're typically trying to sell a service agreement. We feel like this is a value add that enriches that service agreement. You're now able to provide OT cybersecurity to your clients. And if they buy on it, great. If they don't, you take the inode, you move it to the next site. And then also turnkey edge applications. You want to try different analytics. You want to try other solutions that are out there. More and more are coming in the marketplace. How do you create a single place for that to be provided? We have the marketplace. Each one of these application providers typically has a gateway. They have a device that they want to install to do the integration. They have to go through security, InfoSec approval. We're saying eliminate all that, standardize on one platform that's securing your OT networks, providing remote access, and providing a framework for these edge applications to run, or connectivity to these cloud applications in a secure way that's standardized for you within your organization. And it's enabling try and buy, because you're not having to deploy new hardware. You're not having to invest a lot of time. You'll find that these application providers aren't having to invest a ton of time on their side either. It makes a win-win for both the end user and those that are providing these third-party applications. Here's an example of that. So Switch Automation, they use Niagara, containerize it. It's part of our marketplace, provides one-click provisioning. You add the license, you go. It automatically extends best security, zero trust, remote access practices to Switch. With our offering, it's end-to-end cloud connections are protected by us as well. It's a fully managed service. We ensure that all versions of the software and the stack are up to date and connections are authorized and logged. So in summary, we're providing a plug and play solution to securely connect buildings to the cloud, secure building networks and devices, and deploy edge applications for real-time processing, insights, and optimization. We're securing that critical OT infrastructure. We're connecting the buildings. We're adding intelligence to your building, reducing your operational expenses. And ultimately, it's easy to use. There's no new coding, nothing new that you're already not doing that you need to learn to be able to utilize it and leverage this product.
All right, thanks, Aaron. That was great, and great look at the View technology and the way you guys have utilized Niagara in a container. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Joseph Warner at View, at Veea, to cover the Veea Edge offering. Joseph, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. So again, Joseph Warner, Director of Customer Programs. I help with onboarding a lot of our partners and doing the training as well as integration to other applications. And today I'll take you through a little bit about the Veea platform. So the Veea platform brings together server hardware and applications to the edge where the devices are making the connection. We're focused on connectivity, security, and IoT gateway being all in the same box. As you can see, some of our products at the lower left here. We have indoor, outdoor models, and some of our models are LTE capable. So it is the plug and play feature where you can just install a Vea hub by plugging it into power and actually connect to the network for a lot of these IoT devices. They're very easy to deploy solutions, include multiple radios, as well as traditional support for serial connected networks. In our Edge software, we run multiple containers that interact with each other and the cloud resources when necessary, such as AWS Cloud. I'll talk to that detail a little bit further along, but before getting into containers, it's key to point out our cloud management acts as both a security control as well as a utility to orchestrate the on-site Vea hubs, including installed applications from our partners. Our development tools guide partners in building and deploying their applications easily so that they can get their products interacting with the Niagara platform. So here's an architectural description about how the Vea platform works with the Niagara container. It runs alongside of other containers that we have produced, as well as our partners making it available on different resources that, as I said, the Vea hubs have multiple hardware capabilities and connectivity options. So you can also see that we have LoRa chirp stack, so adding that LoRa capability, as well as Mosquito MQTT servers, so we can make those inbound and outbound connections between those different protocols and different wireless technologies. So we can support partner containers, also making applications that talk to these IoT devices. One example is a BACnet and Modbus MSTP container that we produce so that you eliminate the need of additional gateways when you're adding into these networks and making a very flexible installation. So each hub has server processing, memory, local storage capabilities to run local databases as well. We have a patent pending secure Docker container system. So we have secured Docker images from our partners with additional signing capabilities, key signs, and hardware layers that actually restrict the use of the Docker container from touching other resources or other containers. It's very unique to Vea. We also have a Vea bus hardware abstraction layer where you can call on other devices that are connected to edge devices in the mesh. So all the Vea hub mesh can share the device to the Niagara container. So these connected devices are processed locally. You see the connection options at the bottom left here. By each Vea hub processing the data, the connection points, they can send the data into the cloud or right into the Niagara system so that you can have controls right there on site, and that reduces the latency, improves the security. So it's vital that a building's assets reduce cloud dependencies, especially with a lot of the corporate espionage and exploiting vulnerabilities that are out there these days. So we can manage everything about our Vea hubs remotely from our cloud, including the ability to reconfigure network routes, build tunnels into the applications that are normally locally installed, requiring the use of VPNs, so we eliminate that need. Here we've also enabled Niagara to create a dynamic URL that uses Workbench as usual to perform operations, and that means you don't have to be trained on how to use another tool. We basically turn that up and the Niagara technician can access that like as though if it's, he's sitting on the local network. So this is also showing some of the connectivity options which we have on our system. That we've various Vea hubs have capabilities such as the LoRa add-on or LTE add-ons. All of the hubs do come with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and Zigbee. And some of the other options are LTE, 5G, or CBRS connections for the outbound. Now, looking at the remote capabilities of our solution, we can simultaneously connect all the application service endpoints and discover devices within the single point of view of the control center. So this means that remote IoT work and device discovery, commissioning new devices is easily done from the cloud. The on-site personnel would only have to activate that device. So there's a lot of additional remote capabilities that we're adding day to day, and as we point out, keeping those applications secured, making sure that we keep all the patches running and stuff is a daily operation here at Vea. So I'd like to go over some of our deployment process. This platform can stage the environment. We have lower level technicians mount and install and power the hubs, and they can walk away getting a green light from the hub right up there on site. And then remotely we connect to the network without the need of laptop connections or being a certified Niagara installer to do the terminal configuration of those type of JACE installations. We can do this all by our cloud control center, making those network changes with the resources, deploying the Niagara remotely, and then hand over to the Niagara trained technician, all from a remote dashboard. We configure the entire network stack from that one-click subscription to the container and other containers. So, for example, the LoRa containers install multiple databases and web servers. That is all also done with a single click, so you don't have to become trained on how to use LoRa type of containers. From there, the remote access and maintenance further reduce the truck rolls, because you can see which Veea hubs are online and offline and keep the clients running and upgrading, expanding their use of Niagara. And before I go, I did want to talk to the security requirements that we really enforce on a Veea hub. As we said, it's a secure platform from the cloud. These were server and application teams that were building the entire stack from the bottom up to be secure. So it goes through multiple security focused development and testing. The secure hardware elements that are built onto the Veea hubs from the factory through our images being deployed and managed from the cloud and signed with the partner applications, all during enrollment of the Veea hubs and downloading the bootstrap image that goes onto those Veea hubs, including the containers that are signed with Niagara. It makes the partner ecosystem very rich with security and putting layers up that possibly the partners don't have the resources to do that type of a security approach in securing the applications. So it's dual signed by both the partner and Veea when we're putting it onto our app store, preventing any tampering between containers and ability to touch the root operating system or other containers unless you actually are building those other containers or have a port into them. So our process prevents any rogue applications from being installed, and by our process of adding partner applications, creating network and application firewalls, restricting access, it minimizes the attack surface both on our cloud and edge products. So we complement the work that Tridium already performs to secure their products and help our partners to rest assured that they can venture into the wireless options that we offer. And by those wireless options, as I said, connecting locally and not having to go through cloud resources really prevents a lot of the primary attacks that we see in the field. So these are just additional security pieces that we've integrated, multiple ways to think about, like the trust zones on our ARM processors that are running and securing it from the bottom up. And as a summary, we're open to new markets for Niagara, and we're been trying to break out and perform our activities around the world, working on projects from digital inclusion, agriculture, brownfield installations, all the way through established buildings where you can't really commission devices or break ground on a nice facilities and stuff. So even citywide municipality cases, making it easier to just deploy wireless devices and take Niagara beyond the walls of the building with our wireless connectivity options. So Veea's Edge platform accelerates the digital transformation by solving enterprise use case deployment challenges, making it easier, improving their overall usability experience, both for the end users and the use case functionality, reducing challenges of integrations and across disparate solutions and different connectivity types. All this is done with the lower CapEx and operating costs for the entire enterprise. So thank you, and looking forward to connect with you all. Thanks for your time today. Hand this back over to you, Mike.
All right, thank you, Joseph. Get my screen back up here. All right, so I'm not seeing a whole lot of Q&A in the chat, so I will direct some questions here to the Veea and View team. So when you guys were selecting Niagara to include in your platform, Can you kind of talk us through why you elected to choose the containerized approach and kind of what your experience was getting that up and running on your specific hardware? Go to Aaron first.
Yeah, everything we built our own applications that were run on containers, so it just made a lot of sense. And I think the conversations started with Tridium many years ago as we're asking for this. And from a personal note, I've been dealing with Tridium product for 20 plus years, and it's a standard out there. I previously came from one of those application providers, leveraging Niagara. It just makes a lot of sense as far as data integration goes, as far as existing infrastructure that has Niagara already in place, up and running. And this, it's what clients are looking for. They need those connections. Many of the progressive end users or building owners that are creating data lakes, creating analytics for themselves, they really standardize on Niagara as that base layer. So it made perfect sense for us to become partners with Tridium on this.
Thanks, Aaron. Same question over to you, Joseph. I know Veea was actually one of our guinea pigs, and I think the first external customer to run Niagara in a container.
Yes, we started well over 3 years ago talking with Tridium. We have those connectivity options, and as have always been as View's perspective is we've always been containerized to what applications we put on our hubs. And so when we're adding a lot of these wireless sensors that the market is really asking for, to have the ability for general managers or buildings to install things without running and trenching, pulling cables, and that high capex of getting operational. The container approach allows us to be very flexible and push the versions and software changes as needed to make connections to other systems. So it was more effective to manage that remotely from clouds, and that's a big ask from the market, is to make it mobile and remotely accessible to the building, so that if something doesn't happen within the building, you don't have to wake up at 5 in the morning to get over to the site to figure out why the boilers are at different temperatures, for example. You can see and access these things all remotely.
Great, thanks. So I think that kind of touches on, there's a question in the chat from Paul Price. Are these solutions bidirectional and capable of control and monitoring? So I believe both teams touched on this, that the connections are both inbound and outbound for monitoring and control. Is that correct?
Yeah, on the View side, it is. And also to think, we just provide the plumbing and the infrastructure. It's other people's applications that are running on it, and they're leveraging our connections. It's not multiple ports. It just, for our technology to work, it's port 443 just has to be open outbound, and we're able to utilize bidirectional based on the applications that are being deployed. We're not building Niagara stations. We're providing that infrastructure for them to run. So system integrators might have their own application providers, like I brought up with Switch as an example, has their own. We provide that secure infrastructure for them.
Yeah, and it's Caleb from View here. I'll just add to that what Aaron said, that almost everything with our platform is software defined. And so those tunnels out of the box are bidirectional, but if you have a need for restricting the flow of that traffic one way up or one way down, you can then software define them to be data diodes in whatever direction you deem necessary.
Thanks, Caleb. Joseph?
Yeah, as far as accessing the container and other pieces, other containers that we may have running on our system, we really try to put some rules in place to make sure that we have those controls with the partners. So when you build the containers, you have to define which access you need, so that both, if you have multiple containers running on that platform, you're not colliding with other ones. And we are running it in a routed Docker network, so that way it's also additional firewalled from outside, depending on if a container should open a port or make that remotely accessible. We want to make sure that we only surface those vectors within the building if needed, and try to prevent from outside getting in through the cloud or through the local networks. So we are very flexible in changing those containers out. Opening our network and everything is all done remotely. So it's like SD-WAN capabilities with some of our via trusted broadband access. So we can turn networks up and have them in private VXLANs, for example. So only those who are permitted to have access get access to those applications. But as we have an ecosystem for partners to add to the store. So we're always working daily to learn new ways of doing that.
All right, and a good question in the chat here from John kind of ties into this as well. Data, data encryption, data privacy, obviously very important. Data at rest, data in transit, encrypted, and then who owns the data? I assume the customer where the site is installed. If you guys could kind of touch on your approach to securing data at rest and data in transit, that would be good.
Yeah, so on the View side, everything's encrypted end to end. On the diagram, I talked about the inode in the building. There's virtual inodes that go onto the cloud applications as well that are creating that bookended encryption and security. As far as who owns the data, we're just providing, I like to say, the digital plumbing for you securely. And so those application providers can own it. It's really up to them on, what cloud it's on and where it's stored. I mean, there is some data as far as audit logs and things like that for remote access and secure edge configurations that we have in ours. But if we're thinking of like OT data, which I'm thinking the question's probably alluding to, it's all up to that application provider or that owner on the database that they've set up in the cloud.
And likewise, everything that we have data-wise is going into the Niagara ecosystem unless a partner application builds in or holding the data within that container or pushing out to their own clouds. We provide the network paths and APIs as necessary to get the data in the right places. Running MQTT natively in our VIA system, we can help to forward that to other partner clouds.
I know you both mentioned and highlighted your dashboards where you can see, state and health of the networks and the applications that are running. Do your platforms support any type of, I know one of the strong benefits to running in a container is high availability. So ensuring that, if something were to happen with the container instance that's running, is there an automated kind of restore or high availability option for this?
Yeah, we have it both on the cloud side and on the local edge side. So you can cluster inodes for failover on it as well. And that's really, the beauty of the containers is you're talking about cybersecurity and let's say ransomware, for example, and you start talking about IT folks and moving applications to the cloud, if they get hacked or something happens, they have backups and latest versions. They can just restore and move back. And it's the beauty of the architecture, behind containers that helps with that.
Yeah, and we also perform a periodic backup of the way the VIA hubs are deployed so that even the network configuration actually has an image that if a node should go down or get replaced under RMA, you can restore that entire image as it was running previously. And along with Tridium's recent cloud updates, performing the backups in the cloud, we welcome the clients to back that up to the cloud. But we are performing a backup of the persistent files which are stored on the containers. We give each container its own space that they can store the files locally. So our VIA hub will actually push that out as a backup to our cloud that can be restored.
Joseph, a question for you specific to the VIA offering. You mentioned that the devices are mesh enabled. So can you kind of highlight the benefits of having the mesh connected devices and the benefit that brings to a customer?
Well, sure. As I mentioned, we're taking the Niagara installations even outside of the building walls. So when you have the separation between rooms, the different ends of the building that you really can't see it financially capable of like running wires or getting an installation point that you need that sensor data, the Vea hubs can both be wired and wirelessly mesh connected, and it's a self-healing mesh where if you have multiple hubs in range of each other, they can route the traffic to whichever hub is able to be seen in the local Wi-Fi or Ethernet abilities. Those connected devices then at the edge of the wherever else you've installed the Vea hubs are able to be connected to that Vea hub and route to the main Vea hub that has the Ethernet WAN connection to the rest of the Niagara or the building systems. So Vea hub, it really started as a wireless mesh of server appliances. So having the Vea hub mesh is a kind of a unique thing where the Vea hubs are self-discovering in that mesh and able to then make all applications available to all the mesh edge nodes.
All right, thank you, Joseph. I saw a question come through, and I saw another one about support for single sign-on. Caleb, I saw that you answered that View does support IDP and SAML. So I guess this is from the both the the Niagara stack that's running supports all the features that are within Niagara, so you can use that for your existing stations. But as far as your platforms go, is that something that you support? Single sign-on and LDAP type credentials for accessing the systems?
Correct. We got single sign-on integration now to the portals, so that'll get you logged into the portals, right? And then, I mean, we've got an Active Directory that runs on our back end for those user profiles. And then something that's coming in the future is also then the SSO is two pieces, authentication and plus authorization, right? So we got the authentication piece today. That's coming later on the roadmap is the authorization piece. So then you can build out your entire, group management of user within your SSO environment. And then that would be plumbed into our portals and facilitate the same type of provisioning within our portals through the SSO integration.
And Caleb, do you guys support two-factor authentication for login as well?
Right. So both portals also support multi-factor authentication, whatever, authentication app of choice that you want to use, and you don't even have to standardize on it, right? Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, Okta Authenticator application. As long as that application is capable of scanning a QR code to set up the first time, and then, once enabled, then users would log in, and then they'll have to authenticate with that one-time code from multi-factor authentication application.
Thanks, Caleb. Same question over to you, Joseph, for the Vea platform.
We do have APIs that can be created between the systems, but we have, for example, the network side of it's radius support on our hubs. And in the back end, we're using Keycloak to authenticate users. With that user view, we have access controls in place to, let's say you're a general manager and you have one access to change devices, manage the networks, whereas you can open up additional users that may only have reporting, monitoring views. But as we have many other use cases besides building management controls, we do put together portals, captive portals to have users signing in or remote access by applications that all of our partners have developed, many use cases around the world.
Okay. Another one over to you, Joseph. I see a question in the chat from Jed. I know your hub supports multiple wireless protocols. So getting that sensor data onto the hub, then how do you bring that data into Niagara?
Typically, we're using MQTT. So even with one of the containers that we realized serial traffic, RS-422, 485, we created a gateway for MSTP backnet and Modbus into the IP stack of, handing that off backnet over IP, for example. But MQTT has been our standard. So LoRa, for example, we're running a chirp stack installation. It's open source, and they make a MQTT connector for the LoRa devices, and it's bidirectional.
All right, thanks, Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any closing thoughts or closing remarks, Aaron or Joseph?
Just appreciate the time. It's great to be able to present. Thank you guys for that. Just in summary, we came out as a OT cybersecurity offering with remote access. The containerization application piece is something that's been added, probably the most recent. Think of us as that digital secure plumbing for both application providers, system integrators. We're providing that sort of cybersecurity layer and that orchestration platform for you and your applications.
And also thank you all for having me here today. Again, Vea is looking to not replace so much of those installations of Niagara, but add to it, add the flexibility and the capabilities to extend these networks out and make it easy for buildings to adopt additional Niagara functionality.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure working with you, getting these up and running, and excited to see where you guys are taking the technology and expanding it into new markets and new verticals. Just to wrap up here, a quick reminder that the Niagara Summit is upcoming in a couple of weeks, April 15th through the 17th in Anaheim, California. And we will have dedicated tracks on Containerized Niagara. The agenda for the summit is now available on the summit website, so make sure you're checking that out and planning your trip, and make sure you're checking out those sessions during the summit as well. And as always, Tridium University, if you'd like to learn more about Tridium, we do have some free e-learning modules on there, so you can check those out. You can find all of our previous Tridium talks on tridium.com under service and support and events. That is where you will find the Tridium talk from last June, where we did a much deeper dive into the containerized Niagara offering. And there's a lot of good information in there about licensing and subscriptions and the different license models offered there. So I highly recommend, if you've got more questions on that, please check that out. That was from June of last year. And our pros, we got James Johnson and Kevin Mamajek with the Niagara Pro Tip series on YouTube. And that will wrap it up for today's Tridium Talk. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And thank you again to Aaron and Joseph from View and Veea. And any more questions, please reach out to support@tridium.com and we'll get connected, and look forward to seeing everyone at the Niagara Summit here and then next couple of weeks. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you too, Mike. Thank you all.